So many people deal with mental health issues, and about 1 in 5 adults actually experience mental illness each year. And the amount of people who suffer in silence is absolutely astronomical, it's even higher. Ask me how I know. I was once to that person as well. And, when it comes to mental health struggles, it's often due to the pain that we have held on to earlier in our lives, whether it was trauma, childhood abuse, discrimination, just a variety of things that we may have experienced in life. And that has affected us in a drastic way that many times as an adult, we keep it bottled up until it pretty much comes to a head and burst. And to make it worse, about half of the mental health conditions that people experience happen by the age of 14, y'all. Can you believe that? Almost half by the age of 14. And then by the age of 24, that number jumps to 75%. So that means that many of us are experiencing some form of mental health challenge at some point in our life. Craziness. And the thing about mental health, it's not what we were taught growing up. You know how people think about mental health and they think about you being crazy, being in a straitjacket, or somebody who maybe have like schizophrenia. I don't know. Like, it's just been so, I feel like it's still taboo in our community and that we don't talk about it a lot. And a lot of people don't realize that mental health and dealing with the things could be as simple as waking up and not wanting to start your day, or feeling depressed about something that's out of your control, or carrying sadness that you don't know how to shake. Mental health results in like the simplest things, right? And mental health does not mean that you're being committed to an institution. And so that's why this conversation matters so much. That's why we have to normalize talking about it so that people can see that they're not alone. Too many people are suffering in silence, afraid of being judged, afraid of being misunderstood by others, afraid of being laughed at or labeled. And so in light of Mental Health Month, this is why I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to bring my own perspective as someone who has struggled, with my mental health. And I'll go into more detail about my own story. But I also wanted to talk about why mental wellness is deeply embedded into my brand, Strands of Faith. Because it's just so important. It's so much bigger than hair. People are hurting, and I figured what better way to be a beacon of life than through something that I'm building that can help people heal and to just help them on their life journey, right? But I also want to just tell y'all, like, silence is so dangerous, y'all. Silence is dangerous. Like, if you're dealing with anything mentally, you don't have to carry it alone. We were not meant to carry these burdens alone. I used to be somebody who kept every single thing in. I didn't want to burden other people with my problems. I thought that, I was being a burden just by sharing what was going on in my mind. And that is the worst thing you can do to yourself, because that's how the enemy works against you. He wants you to pile up all the things in your mind. He wanted to build up. And then before long, you're feeling like, what is the point of me being here? Like, what value do I have to offer? And all of those negative thoughts, which are lies, by the way, they are lies, the lies. So I'm begging you to not stay silent, write it out, talk it out, journal it, talk to somebody who you can trust, a trusted friend, get a therapist. You got to get these things out of your mind. They cannot stay in your head. The world and just living, just being can be so heavy sometimes, and we're not meant to carry this load alone. That's how you get to the point of no return, is when it piles up. And so I'm telling you, because I want you to be free so badly, okay? As somebody who's had my own share of ups and downs and who's been on my healing journey, like, the healing journey has not been easy, and I've always said that if you've experienced any type of mental health issues, trauma, healing can feel lifelong. I mean, it can be lifelong, and that's okay. I mean, I don't believe you truly ever arrive, but when you keep trying every single day and showing up, eventually the load does get lighter. And actually, just last year, I was going through a lot, y'all. It just felt like a lot for me, between childhood trauma, between experiences that I've experienced in adolescence, all the way through adulthood, building a business from the ground up. It was stressful. It was crazy. It was very, very heavy, a very heavy load to carry for me. And so it was tough. And so I was like, you know what? I got to do something about this. And so I ended up going to the doctor. I wanted to figure out like what was going on, like what state of mind was I in. And so I ended up going to a mental health clinic. So I was talking to the mental health therapist, and we ended up doing like this intake form where they like go through all these lists of questions that are very thorough. And basically at the end of it, she told me that I had severe anxiety. She was like, you got severe anxiety, and this is on the bigger side of it. Like, it wasn't mild, it wasn't moderate, it was severe, y'all. And at that time, it actually was severe. The thing with severe anxiety is that it does depend on where you are in your life, like what phase you are in your life, right? And it ranges on the scale, but in that season, mine was severe enough to where she was like, at this stage, we generally prescribe medication. And the medications, that she was going to prescribe, I forgot the top 2 leading anxiety medications, but at the time, I was still breastfeeding my youngest. Maybe it was a year before last, right? It was about 2 years when I was into the tail end of the breastfeeding journey. And so I didn't want to take medications for a couple of reasons. Number one, I was still breastfeeding. And number 2, I'm not a medicine person. I'm more of a holistic person. So like whenever I get sick, I generally like to let things pass on its own. And so I was like, you know what? Let me think about it. Let me pray about it. Let me come up with a strategy of how I want to handle this. And so I went home, I prayed about it. I was like, okay, God, here are my options. I was like, I don't want to take these medications. So what I decided to do was I meditated, I prayed, I fasted, and I did all the things that I could do within my control to try to get it into alignment before I resorted to the last resort, which was medication. But I want to be clear. Let me just be absolutely clear. There's absolutely nothing wrong with taking medication. Like, if you have to get on medication to manage your mental health, please get on the medication, right? I'm all for prayer. I'm all for keeping the faith, for the meditation, for loving God, for believing, and I'm for taking the medication if you have to, right? You can do all the things and still do what you got to do, which is to take the medication. Like, I don't believe in that whole pray it away mindset, because sometimes we can be so radical that we mislead people by saying things like, oh, you just don't have enough faith, or you should just pray. No, listen, I have faith. I got crazy faith, right? And I trust and believe that God is a healer. But at the same time, He also put the physicians, the therapists, the counselors here to help us along this journey in life. That's what He did. We live in a world that is not always perfect or peaceful. So if you gotta take the medications, listen, I say this with all sincerity. Take your medications and pray at the same time. Okay. So for me, I personally decided not to take the medication, and I decided to manage it. But the question would be, what got me to this point? Because, a lot of the time people are dealing with things on the inside that you can't see on the surface. And most times it don't start just yesterday. It didn't start last year. It didn't start 2 years ago. Right. And, a lot of this stuff be brewing in the lives of a lot of people, like even for decades beyond them getting to the point to where they got to where it just reaches a boiling point and they just pop. So who is Amika? What is my story? I just want to share the background and the backstory of just my life so that you can really understand that mental health is something that affects all of us. It's more than what meets the eye. We all have a story. And the purpose of me sharing my story is because I always want to encourage, motivate, inspire, elevate other people on their journey. So let you know that you are not alone. You're absolutely not alone. And I think that we are overcome by the words of our testimony when we share things that we've overcome and the blessings that God has done in our life and how He's healed us. It gives other people hope and inspiration that they can do the same no matter what they may be going through in life, right? I think sometimes when you see people who you perceive to be successful or whatever, I just want to come and share my story so that you can see that you're not alone on this life journey. So I was born with a condition called strabismus. Strabismus is, layman terms, you may know it as cross eyes. And so it's basically when one eye looks straight and the other one go way out and it looks like it's looking at somebody else. And so your eyes basically do not work together in sync. And so as you can imagine, growing up in grade school, elementary, like when I was younger, I was often made fun of by other kids. Growing up, I was often made fun of by adults too, which is crazy when I think about it. Diabolical. That's the word that y'all say, diabolical, and I just remember that sticking with me because I'm like, wow, adults laughing at a kid, and those type of things really play a role on someone's mental health. Like bullying plays a major role on the impact of somebody's mental health, which is why I don't like bullying at any level. And in today's world, even with social media, I feel like it's worse. Like you've got kids bullying kids, but then you also have adults bullying adults, and I absolutely despise it. But anyway, that condition caused me to stay to myself. I stayed silent. I didn't talk. I didn't use my voice because I didn't want to bring attention to me. I didn't want people to be drawn to me and to see my eyes. And so whenever you talk to somebody, you're supposed to get them eye contact, right? But when you're giving them eye contact and they're looking around trying to figure out, who is she talking to? Like, who is she looking at? Like, that is, you know what I'm saying? Like, basically, you're going to try to prevent that. You talking to somebody and they saying, are you talking to me? Like, who are you talking to? And so what do? You withdraw. You stop talking. You don't raise your hand in class. You sit in a corner. You avoid being seen. You be quiet, It was hard to make friends. It was hard to live the full life that God intended for me to live because I was always withdrawing. Like, I did not want the attention. I just wanted to disappear. Like, God, just vanish me, right? But that was me throughout grade school, middle school, high school. And while everybody else was learning how to communicate, trying and failing and growing, like I didn't learn communication at that time in my life. I developed social anxiety because I just didn't want to talk to people. And so all of that played a part on my mental health. And when I look back now, it's crazy because it all ties into all the things I'm doing now, which is, I'm going to get to that, but God is a keeper. It shows that He is a healer. No matter what you're going through in life, God always makes a way out of no way and make things come full circle. He's just so good like that. But with that condition, I felt different. I felt like a black sheep. I felt overlooked more times than I can count. And it just really shaped how I saw myself, how I perceived myself. Like if I was pretty, I didn't feel pretty because of my eyes. So that was that. That was my eye story. But the mental health journey continued on because at the age of 5, I was molested, something that unfortunately a lot of us experience. And it exposed me to sexuality at an early age. I remember carrying feelings of shame, all the negative emotions that came with it. So much so, y'all, that I didn't even share this with my parents until I was like 21. I was a student in college when I finally told them, and I kept those emotions bottled up all of those years. Like, can you imagine that? Can you imagine a child keeping those feelings bottled up, having nobody to protect her? Nobody knew what was going on. And the crazy thing about it was I had loving parents. Like my mom was the most careful, sweetest mom ever. But what happened was she took me to somebody who she trusted to watch. And she didn't know that the people they had around could not be trusted. And so that experience in itself, as you can imagine, now having my own kids, that affected me because early on it became difficult for me to leave my kids around people where I wasn't able to be present because of that trauma. And so that scarred me. And I'm still working through that. But it just goes to show that sometimes my mom trusted somebody and you just never know who other people have around. And like I said, unfortunately, this is a lot of people's story. A lot of people have went through this, especially now, you see a lot of more adults coming out sharing their stories. And so it happens more than we know. And it absolutely hurts my heart that, people have their innocent stripped from them at such a young age, at a time where they couldn't control it. It's absolutely unreal. Okay. Anyway, that alone is another reason why many people struggle with their mental health. Like that can spiral into so many other things in people's lives. And so that's why I had an issue with trust. And it's also a double-edged sword as well, because I lack trust. But at the same time, I was too trusting of people. That's another side effect of abuse. And so as a result, I ended up in situations with people who hurt me over and over and over again. And yeah, it's crazy. If you've been through this, you probably know exactly what I mean. It's hard to explain, you you trust people too much that results in you getting hurt, but then at the same time, you lack trust in people because of how they've harmed you and hurt you. Craziness. So as a result of my eye condition, as a result of the abuse, what happened was over time, I developed low self-esteem. I developed low self-worth. Like, I did not realize my worth. I did not realize the value that I carried. I didn't think I had any value. I always describe it as being like a shell of a person, just like a soul in a body, just going through life. That's how it felt. I was just existing. I didn't feel like I had a sense of purpose. I didn't feel like I had a reason for being. I just felt worthless. So as a result of all of those things, it played a role in what came next in my life. By the time I got to high school, I started getting in relationships. I wanted to feel loved. I wanted to be loved. But the issue was I did not know true love. Like, I did not know true love. I was broken. And I always say that when you're broken, people who don't mean you no good, they can sense that. They can see that you're broken and that you don't have worth about yourself, and they seek you out. It's like they prey on you, like prey is pouncing on an animal. And so the relationships that I got in, of course, they turned out to be abusive. They were physically abusive, verbally abusive. At the time, every relationship I got in that was abusive, I stayed. Why? Because I didn't know my worth. I just wanted to be loved. And I didn't have the power or the strength to break away, to say, I deserve more. And so what happened? It became a cycle. It just was like a merry-go wheel, round and round and round. And people always, probably ask, like, how does a cycle of abuse even happen? That's how. It starts in your mind. Like, what you believe about yourself is what you're going to accept. And so if I'm feeling worthless, if I'm feeling like I don't have value, then I'm going to accept things that match that belief, right? So when somebody was knocking my head between the washer and dry, guess what? At that time, I'm not thinking I deserve better. When somebody is kicking me out on the side of the highway, I'm not thinking I deserve better. You know what I'm saying? When somebody spit in my face, y'all, the lowest you can do to somebody, I wasn't thinking that I deserved better, because my mindset was I wasn't worthy, And all of those things were painful, but it's like, the best way I can describe it, it's like having like this foggy cloud over your eyes. Like, it's wrong, but you can't see clearly because you don't have the proper tools. You don't have the support. You don't have the structure to reprogram your brain to say, girl, get out, right? Get out. Like that movie, Get Out. Remember in the movie, everything was wrong, but he couldn't see. He couldn't get out. That's why when people say to somebody who's been in an abusive relationship, like, why don't they just leave? Y'all, it's not that simple. Most of the times, people who are in domestic relationships are victims also of emotional manipulation. And when somebody gets in your mind, that takes time to undo. It's not something that happens overnight. It takes time. And so I basically said all that to say, since I didn't know my worth, I stayed in those abusive relationships. It became a cycle, and it all came down to me not knowing my worth. And so I just wanted to share a little bit of my story and all the things that I've dealt with that brought me to this point in my life. But you know what? The beautiful thing with God is that there is always a turning point. It doesn't matter how many valleys you've been in. You could be in the lowest of the lows, like your life could have been the toughest, and you could have endured the absolute most horrendous things ever. But there is always hope. In the midst of it all, the one thing that kept me going, the one thing that kept me sane, the one thing that reminded me that there was more was my faith. It was my faith, y'all. It was my faith that kept me. Even in my brokenness, God was still a keeper. He didn't leave me where I was. It was my faith. And so that's why now with my brand Strands of Faith, you always hear me say, keep the faith, keep the faith. That's for a reason, because I know how powerful faith is. If my faith kept me, what more can it do for anybody who's been through the deepest of the trenches? All you need is faith the size of a mustard seed, and you can and will move mountains. Anything in your life that you thought you couldn't break through from, that was just overwhelming, with just a little bit of faith, man, you can do anything. And so that's why my faith was so important to me. And I just want to say it again. The journey is a journey for a reason. The way you overcome trauma and the things that you've been through is you have to realize that God did not call you to do this journey alone, right? And it's funny because trauma will have you thinking the absolute opposite. Trauma will have you in isolation. Trauma will keep you from speaking up or confiding in other people. But you got to find your safe people. You got to find your safe people to get this stuff out of your head, get it out, get therapy, get counseling. If you don't have friends or family, somebody who you can trust, find somebody, get some professional help, right? Somebody who is objective, who can give you roadmaps and tools to help you on your journey. Pray, ask God to help you spiritually and emotionally, like lay it all out before him. Just lay it all out. He sees all, he knows all. He doesn't want you to go through the pain, but that's just a part of life. You're going to go through it. And he said that he's never going to leave you nor forsake you. And so even in the midst of it, he's still there. You know, we live in a broken world. We go through things, but talk to God. Tell him how you feel. Say, God, I'm feeling down today. Give me your strength. I can't do this. I need your help. Speak to him like you would a friend. Ask him questions. Ask the hard ones. You know, it's a relationship. You can talk to him. Be gentle with yourself. If I could tell anybody anything, is that be gentle with yourself. Show yourself so much grace. Show yourself so much grace. As much grace as you show all the other people in your life, I want you to show yourself the same grace, because you're learning to live again. Like, you're learning to live, period. You know, maybe you never did live. Maybe you've just always existed. Learning how to do something that you've never done before is a journey in itself. Like, you didn't come out the womb walking. You learn how to crawl first, right? And then you learn how to take a few steps. And then you learn how to fully walk. That's how it is with overcoming trauma. You have to learn how to live again. You got to take baby steps. You got to take it a day at a time by giving yourself grace in the process. Also, don't rush it. Please don't rush it. It sounds so good to be healed and whole one day after you've experienced the trauma and the trauma happened. But the reality is it don't happen like that. So don't rush the process. Embrace it. Embrace the journey, because I guarantee you who you are today will not be the same person you are 5 years from now. And who you are today is not the same person you were 5 years ago. So don't rush the process. Speak life over yourself every single day. Write down some type of faith formation that can uplift you and remind you of who you are and who you are, okay? All of your goals, all of your visions, write those things down and speak them over yourself until you start to believe them, until you start to see them manifest, until you start seeing them become a reality. Also, don't confuse struggle with identity. I see so many people going through it in life and they mistakenly confuse that with their identity and who they are. But a season of struggle in your life does not define who you are. It's just that it's a season. It's a season of struggle. So please don't confuse the two. Anything that you've experienced in life that was outside of your control, or even the mistakes that you've made in life that were in your control, like, those things still don't define you. What defines you is how you choose to respond. So respond, pivot, do whatever you gotta do. But that's what defines you, what you decide to do with it. So don't allow your struggles to define your identity. So how do you overcome when you're trying to find yourself and live again? Find something that brings you joy, whether it's a hobby, a project, building a business. Find something that brings you absolutely joy. Something that's going to help you impact others in a good way. For me, I feel like that is the cheat code to living in purpose, to living fully and wholly. It's when you can impact others, doing what you love while helping other people on their journey and impacting them along theirs. And so find something that brings you joy. For me, that came in the form of building a business. When I tell you Strands of Faith was my saving grace, I don't just say that lightly. Strands of Faith has been my saving grace, literally. It has healed me in more ways than I can imagine. Strands of Faith has healed me in ways that I can't even explain or verbalize. And, you know, when God gave me the idea to start it, it started from passion. You know, I always say it was passion meeting purpose. It started because I had a passion for natural hair and encouraging women to just embrace and love the strands that they were born with. But God turned it into so much more. And so when he gave me the name Strands of Faith, it came just like that, like Strands of Faith. Why? Because my faith was my lifeline. Faith was my foundation. And so I wanted to build a brand that combined hair care with heart care, creating, formulas that were clean, effective for texture hair is something that I wanted to bring to the white space of the market because texture hair was underrepresented. Texture hair was always overlooked. Looser textures were way more glamorized. And so I wanted to create a brand that brought texture hair to the forefront, one that was a forethought and not an afterthought, right? But then it was also way more than that. I wanted to build a brand that focused on mental wellness. As you can probably see, my story leading up to this, encouraging our customers to show up as their best selves no matter what, to keep the faith in themselves always, no matter what. And so combining those two things has been, what my brand has been about. Like, we're not just a hair brand, we are heart brand, and for me, this is what gives me joy. I have purpose in making other people feel seen, making them feel valued, making them feel validated, right? Because when you come from a place of knowing what it feels like not being seen, you dig in the trenches and the depths of your soul to make sure that nobody else has to feel the things that you felt when you were at your lowest. And so that's why Strands of Faith means so much to me. Building a brand that's a safe space, not just for beauty, but for healing. And I'm so grateful for our community. When we first started out, our customers were named Faithers, Faithers, Faithers. And a few years ago, they collectively recoined their name to be Blessties because they are my besties, but they're blessed, so Blessties. First of all, let me talk to y'all. I just want to let you know how much you mean to me. And I'm just so grateful to be building a brand for you. This has been a beautiful, amazing journey. Like, I put my absolute all, into building this brand, and it's just been so healing for me. And that same healing it's been for me. I pray and hope that you feel it, through our products, through our content, through our messaging. And it's just been a beautiful experience, and I'm just so grateful. Like, I cannot express my gratitude enough. For those of you who may be watching and have never heard my story, you probably can see how it all came full circle and how I'm so passionate about this, and how I have also such a passion about representation, inclusivity, and making people feel just seen and included. Because, like I said, it stemmed from a place in my life where I wasn't all the time. And so, just channeling all of that energy when it was at a bad time of my life and pouring it into something positive, it's just so beautiful. And it's purpose work. Like, through this brand, I know that this is part of my purpose. This is part of the purpose that God has blessed me with. And so that's why I say, on your own mental wellness journey, on your own mental health journey of overcoming things, find something that brings you joy. Build something that's going to bring you joy. Pick up a habit that's going to bring you joy. Something that can allow you to pour into other people, because as you're pouring into other people, you're going to realize that it is healing bits and pieces of you as well. And that's what makes the journey so beautiful once you start to heal, because you realize you're not on a journey yourself. Like, the things you went through, yes, they happened to you. Yes, they were unfortunate, but your story is for the healing of others who may be going through some of the same things. And so anyway, to my blessings, I just want to say thank you. Thank y'all so much for just believing in me, for supporting me, for trusting me. I cannot put into words just how grateful and thankful I am. So yeah, I just want to end this conversation by saying that we're all struggling with something, right? Every day is not going to be easy. But don't give up on yourself. You deserve to live. You deserve to thrive. You deserve to be. You have value. You have worth. You have experiences that nobody else has. And people are waiting for you to share. Just know that you are not on this journey alone. Talk to whoever you got to talk to. to get you where you need to be mentally, okay? You are deeply loved. Always know that. Always know that. There's always help. There's always hope. And there is healing waiting for you. There is healing waiting for you. If you don't do anything else in life, one thing I don't ever want you to do, ever, ever, is never give up on your faith. Keep the faith no matter what, because keeping the faith alone, that's enough to get you from one valley to the next. And eventually to the peak and to the mountaintop. So don't ever, ever stop keeping the faith. It's okay to not be okay also, but it's even better when you're not okay alone and in community, when you share with people so that they can help you overcome. So y'all, this was this was nice. It was nice to share my journey. Thank y'all so much again for everything. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for seeing me. When y'all leave the comments and send us emails and messages, it absolutely warms my heart. Like those small comments, no matter how small they be, no matter how small they may seem, are actually every single thing to me. And, you know, even with putting the mustard seed jars in the orders, like that's my gift to you, to always remember to keep the faith. And I'm just so grateful to be on this journey. So I hope you have an amazing day. Remember, you are loved. You are amazing. You are spectacular. Okay? Keep the faith. Bet on you, because God already did.